Welcome back to Texas Nation. Once again, I'm Grant Levenson, still here with Karl and Aren. And now we're going to get into our roundtable discussion, and we're going to hit a bunch of topics. But let's get right into the upcoming NCAA tournament, but more specifically, the conference championships that are going down this weekend. Guys, Selection Sunday is just one day away, so this is the big time for some of those teams who are on the bubble or who are on the bubble of making a 1 or a 2 seed. So let's get into it. In the Big 12 Conference Championship, Aren, who do you see coming out on top?
Most likely Kansas. I'd like to see Texas come out top, but I think Kansas is going to get it.
All right, what about you?
Hey, it's March Madness, baby. I can't do it, Dickie V. I
Dickie
can't. I'm
V,
sorry.
baby,
I can't do it. I can't do it. Playing really well right now is Kansas State. They kind of have a mental edge coming off the victories against UT and Kansas. I think they're the dark horse in the Big 12 tournament.
Kansas State has actually beaten both Kansas and Texas, and in fact, they just beat Kansas on their own home court, and Jacob Pullen put on a performance. So it'll be real interesting to see. You got superpowers on all three teams. You got Jacob Pullen for the Wildcats, you got the Morris brothers for Kansas, and then you got the 2 Canadian freshmen for the Longhorns. So it'll be real interesting to see how that plays out. Now let's talk Big Ten, Karl. Who do you see coming out of the Big Ten?
I really like Purdue. My boy Juwan Johnson is playing very well over there, getting blocks, points, and rebounds. He's just filling up the middle and making things happen.
Well, he's really done a good job of stubbing in for Robbie Hummel, who was the team's leading scorer and the team's I guess eventual leader when he went down earlier this year with an ACL. Now, Aren, who do you see coming out of the Big Ten?
Without a doubt, Ohio State. Jared Sullinger's really playing good over there. 6'9". The guy's a beast down low. I think they're coming out of the Big Ten.
He is definitely one of the most powerful freshmen I've seen in a long time. He and Tristan Thompson down at Texas are really putting on a show down below. Now let's get into the last big conference, the Big East. Who do you see coming out, Aren?
That's a tough one. I think Pittsburgh. I'll go with Pittsburgh. Yeah, they look pretty good.
Okay.
You're going to think I'm crazy, but I got Villanova coming out of this one. I think they're a good young team. I believe they have the best backcourt in the nation with Corey Fisher and Malik Waynes. And that'll be – Jay Wright will get them together. They haven't played well lately, but they will get together for the big March Madness going on.
Karl coming out of the woodwork here with 2 dark horse picks. I like it. Now let's go ahead and talk about which team in the NCAA has the most to gain and which team has the most to lose. Karl, we'll start with you.
Ooh, BYU. People have been talking about this being a one-man team, kind of like a Stephon Curry at Davidson. It's funny, on Around the Horn they were saying, we'll give you a point for any player not named Jimmer, So it's kind of like, that kind of shows that Jimmer Fredette has that celebrity status, but it's still a team game.
Well, so are they the most? Do they have the most to lose?
They have the most to lose if
now,
they
who
don't
has the most
play
to
well.
gain?
Ooh, most to gain has to probably be Kansas. Okay. I think they have the national championship titles and they have the 1 seed, and I think there's still a sour taste in last year's loss to Iowa State that they're going to avenge.
Okay. Now, Aren, what about you?
BYU is tough not to choose, but I would say most to lose would probably be Pitt. I mean, they really need to win this tournament to make sure they solidify that #1 seat. And most to gain will be Texas. If they can win that Big 12 tournament, they can really become a #1 seed in the March Madness tournament.
Yeah, I know you were talking with me earlier about how you're in love with their defense. How they just have such a lockdown defense with Doge Balbay and then Jordan Hamilton, who's really come back, folks. This shows you just what an extra year in college can do. Jordan Hamilton was a guy who took 20 shots a game, only made about 5 of them. Really ruined the team's camaraderie and chemistry. Now he's come back and he's by far the leader on the team, one of the best players in the country. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with your assessment there. I think Texas definitely has the most to gain. If they win, they can be that #1 seed.
Don't forget St. John's, though. They're playing really well right now. A couple weeks ago, they were just kind of a team that played well occasionally against Giants, but now they're playing really well.
You're right, and they were just beating just the Giants, with Duke and teams like that. But let's go ahead now, guys. I want to get your 4 #1 seeds. Aren, we'll start with you. Who do you see getting that #1 seed?
I'll go with Pitt, Ohio State, Kansas, and I'll give it Texas.
Oh, you think Texas pulls out all the stops in the conference tournament?
#2 defense, I like it.
If it weren't for that 1 week where the top 4 teams that looked like to be locks for the #1 seed all lost, then it would kind of be a lock. But I think I got Pitt, Duke. I think I'll go with Ohio State as well. And if BYU didn't have that one player go out, I would have gone with if Davis didn't go out, I would have gone with BYU. But I'm kind of mystery at the 4th spot right now.
Maybe Kansas?
Oh, Kansas. Yes, I knew I was forgetting a name. Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's going to be real interesting. And like I said, Selection Sunday is just one Sunday away. So, folks, get your brackets printed out, or get ready to print them out, because we're about to see some great madness. Because especially this year, there's no dominant team.
Yeah.
It's a big pool of great teams. And let's see how this turns out. Now, let's switch subject now. Let's talk about some baseball. We got opening day just around the corner. But I don't know if y'all noticed, nobody had the Giants on their radar for favorites to win the World Series last year. I mean, I know many people might have thought them as, a good wild card contender, but not to win the World Series. No, so guys, who do you see this year as maybe this year's Giants? Someone who's flying under the radar, who can really make a late push and possibly win the World Series. Carl?
I like the Atlanta Braves. They have a good group of young talent. Gordon Hayward is playing very well for them.
Jason Hayward.
Gordon Hayward is basketball player.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Jason Hayward played very well for them. Now he's stepping into his 2nd season, and it's one of those teams like the Giants, like you said, were unknown, and now they're talking about how great this staff is. So one season can really turn around.
Well, they do have great pitching, and the Braves always seem to have a knack for developing young players and finding those players and getting them out to the bigs quick. Now, Aren, who do you think?
I mean, it's tough. It's a long season, 162 games, but mine aren't really flying on the radar. They've been big news in the offseason. I would have to say the Red Sox or the Phillies. I mean, the Phillies starting lineup is just ridiculous. I mean, how are you going to go against that in the playoffs?
Yeah, you got the 2 Roys,
Cliff Lee,
you got
Holiday,
Cole.
Can I be their 5th starter?
Yeah,
I'm sure anybody could be their 5th starter and they still make it to the playoffs.
All's well.
Yeah.
And then of course you got the big news with the Red Sox. They're in a little harder division than Philly, I think, overall. So either one of those 2 teams looks pretty promising.
Okay, now let's talk a little bit about spring training. Now, many people view this as the preseason for football, which, I mean, it technically is. But do you think that spring training in baseball is really important? Like, does it develop players? Does it have a good, does it have a good feeling?
I like watching spring training to see how maybe the younger guys, for example, with Jason Worth leaving, Dominic Brown will be playing outfield for the Phillies.
Right.
And he's a very good young prospect. I think that'll be the young players are the main people to look at, because there's a joke from Major League 2 where they were saying, like, our leadoff hitter has a lot of power right there. It's like, yeah, I guess the guy's going to be bagging groceries in a couple of weeks, So preseason's just kind of looking at the younger guys.
Aren?
Yeah, I agree. It's a real good look at the young guys because they get a chance to get in the game. They won't get as much in the regular season, but apparently preseason is not so good for the the Cardinals. But we'll see. It's just the same as the season, just long, drawn out.
And in a way, you can't really convince me that April baseball is important.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's almost the preseason. The first 50 games are almost the preseason in baseball.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's change topics now and hit up a little NFL, and specifically I want to talk about the Combine. How good of a measure, or I guess how well does it measure the players that are going into the draft? Carl?
I don't really like it. It's kind of like it's a different game playing pads and wearing the right pants, and you're out there running like you're ready to do stuff in a shirt and shorts. You don't have the adrenaline rush either,
Right.
Like our boy Aren Williams only ran like a 4.56 or something like that. That's not a good time, but we know he's a better player than that.
Right, and I agree. Field speed is much different than 40 speed. Aren?
I'd have to disagree. Usually I would agree, but I'll give you a good example. Cam Newton. Boy, do we see a different player during the Combine than we did with the actual season.
Yeah, I mean, he was dominating everyone in the regular season, and then he goes into the Combine and has one of the worst performances. He definitely hurt his stock. He was something like 11 for 25 when it came to throwing. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with what both of y'all said. It's certain things are poor. Like, you don't need to know how fast the offensive lineman runs a 40. But then again, you don't need to know how high a quarterback can jump. When of those things.
Now, what does broad jump really do?
Right, exactly. So I agree. Guys, thank you so much for coming on today. It's been a fantastic show. Well, we're about to get down to our last segment right when we come back from this break, where I'll be sitting down with Maddie Serviente, and we'll be talking about the Texas State Bobcats baseball team. Don't go anywhere.